The rain hammered the cracked pavement outside the city courthouse as Richard Kane, con man in a tailored gray suit, froze under the fluorescent lights. Lydia Brooks, clutching files with trembling hands, hissed, "You lied to me, Richard." Gasps erupted from the bystanders as Lydia slammed the evidence onto the table. Her voice broke. "You promised us safety. Government protection." Richard's smirk faltered for the first time as uniformed officers moved in from the shadows. Jonathan Hale, the investigator with sharp eyes, stepped forward, his badge glinting. He said, "Richard Kane, you are under arrest for fraud and impersonation of a federal officer." Cameras flashed wildly, capturing his fall from power. Betrayed investor Michael Carter shouted, "You ruined my family." Richard's eyes darted toward his hidden accomplice, Amanda Lee, standing silent in the back, face unreadable. The entire room held its breath as Richard, once untouchable, was finally cornered. 2 weeks earlier, Lydia Brooks hurried through the rain-slick streets toward a coffee shop where Richard waited, all smiles and warm charm. He said, "Lydia, I'm with Homeland Security. We flagged a threat in your neighborhood." Her breath caught as he slid a folder across the table, full of official-looking seals and paperwork. He promised government protection for her and her family if she cooperated. She stared at him, torn between fear and relief, while he leaned closer, lowering his voice, weaving tales of danger and safety only he could offer. Outside, cars hissed over wet asphalt, headlights streaking the windows like restless ghosts. Lydia bit her lip, nodding slowly as she began to believe the man who would soon ruin her life. Later that night, Richard stood before a small crowd in a rented hall, projecting confidence like a seasoned politician. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the government trusts me to keep you safe." His voice wrapped around them like velvet rope as he held up fake credentials under the bright lights. Lydia sat near the front, eyes shining with hope. Jonathan Hale, unknown to them all, watched from the back, suspicion tightening his jaw. The audience leaned in, hanging on Richard's every word as rain pounded the roof above, masking the sound of deceit slithering through the air. In the hallway afterward, Jonathan cornered Lydia gently. He said, "You barely know this man? Federal agent? Did you even check his ID?" Lydia bristled, hugging her purse. "He's helping us," she snapped. Jonathan exhaled sharply, eyes scanning the retreating figure of Richard, laughing with strangers. He muttered, "Something's off here." His words slipped past Lydia like wind through open doors, unheard or ignored, while Richard's lies grew roots in the silence. The next morning, Lydia handed Richard a check, savings scraped together under fear's heavy hand. He smiled warmly, saying, "This ensures your family's safety." She nodded, relief flooding her face as if she'd bought peace itself. Outside the diner window, dawn painted the wet streets gold, but inside, shadows clung to Richard's grin like cobwebs. Lydia sat at her kitchen table, staring at a stack of unpaid bills under the dim glow of a single bulb. Her fingers trembled as she traced the numbers that never seemed to add up. She whispered, "I just need a break." A photo of her late parents rested beside the bills, a reminder of promises she'd made to herself. Outside, the storm raged, rattling windows like angry fists. Her teenage son slept in the next room, blissfully unaware of the mounting debt, threatening their home. Lydia rubbed her temples, exhaustion sinking into her bones. The phone buzzed with a message from Richard. "Urgent. Call me immediately." She clutched it like a lifeline, hope battling dread in her chest. Her voice cracked as she muttered, "Maybe this is the answer I've been waiting for." The rain outside drowned out the whisper of warning inside her heart. The next afternoon, Lydia met her childhood friend and confidant, Daniel Price, at a corner cafe. He noticed the dark circles under her eyes and frowned. "Lydia, you look wrecked. What's going on?" She hesitated, then confessed, "Richard's been helping me. He's from Homeland Security." Daniel's brow furrowed. "Did you verify that? Something feels off about this guy." Lydia shook her head sharply. "He's protecting us, Daniel. He's the only one who cares." Daniel sighed, frustration etched deep in his face. I've seen people get burned by smooth talkers before. Don't let fear blind you. Lydia looked away, her hand tightening around her coffee cup. His words pressed against her defenses, but Richard's promises felt safer than Daniel's warnings. That evening, Richard visited Lydia's home, his charm filling every corner of the room. He smiled warmly, saying, "Lydia, I've been monitoring your case personally. Your neighborhood is a target, and I'm here to protect you." His voice was steady, reassuring, like a doctor delivering good news. Lydia's son peeked from behind the doorway, curiosity in his wide eyes. Richard crouched, offering a kind smile to the boy before turning back to Lydia. "I need you to trust me completely. Everything I do is for your safety." Lydia's shoulders slumped as relief washed over her. She said softly, "Thank you, Richard. I don't know what I'd do without you." Outside, the storm finally cleared, leaving a deceptive calm that mirrored Richard's facade. Daniel called Lydia later that night, his voice urgent over the crackling phone line. "Lydia, please listen. I've been digging into Richard. Nothing checks out, no agency records, no credentials." Lydia's breath hitched, anger rising. "Stop it, Daniel. You don't know him like I do." She paced the kitchen, clutching the phone tight. Daniel's tone sharpened. "He's lying to you. I can feel it." Lydia's hands shook as she shouted, "You're wrong. He's the only one helping us." Silence stretched between them before Daniel sighed heavily. "I just don't want to see you hurt." Lydia hung up, tears streaking her face, clinging desperately to the illusion Richard had built. Meanwhile, across town, Amanda Lee met Richard in a dimly lit parking garage. She handed him a briefcase filled with documents, her voice low and precise. "Everything's in place. Lydia believes every word you've told her." Richard smirked, flipping through forged papers. "Good. The deeper she trusts me, the harder she'll fall." Amanda adjusted her coat, glancing nervously around. "What about the investigator? He's been watching you." Richard's eyes narrowed, a predator sensing threat. "Jonathan Hale is a minor nuisance. By the time he pieces it together, it'll be too late." Their laughter echoed off cold concrete walls, sealing Lydia's fate in the shadows. Richard stood at the front of a crowded community hall, his voice calm but commanding. "This operation is expanding," he announced, holding up a map covered in red marks. Lydia sat in the front row, her hands clasped tightly as hope flickered in her eyes. Behind her, whispers spread among the townspeople, fear twisting their faces. Richard continued, "I have secured special federal funding to protect this community. I just need each of you to contribute so we can act quickly." Lydia's heart raced as she turned to a neighbor and whispered, "It's worth it to keep our families safe." In the shadows, Jonathan Hale watched, his fists clenched as Richard spun a perfect web of lies. Amanda Lee stood near the back, silently observing, her cold smile betraying her secret role. The hall erupted in nervous applause, sealing Richard's grip on them all. After the meeting, Lydia stormed out into the cool night air, her mind spinning with excitement and fear. Daniel caught up to her, his face tight with worry. "Lydia, this is insane. You don't know this man or where the money is going." She spun around, eyes blazing. "He's saving us, Daniel. You're just too stubborn to see it." Daniel grabbed her shoulders gently, desperation in his voice. "Please think, real federal agents don't demand cash in envelopes." Lydia jerked away, tears welling in her eyes. "You're wrong. He cares about us." Richard appeared in the doorway, smiling calmly, which only deepened Daniel's suspicion. Lydia walked toward Richard, leaving Daniel standing alone under the street lamp, shadows swallowing his anger. Later, Amanda met Lydia at a local diner, playing her role as the supportive friend. She stirred her coffee slowly, eyes warm and sympathetic. "Lydia, I know Daniel means well, but sometimes people don't understand the bigger picture." Lydia sighed, exhaustion etched into her face. "He just won't stop. I feel like I'm going crazy." Amanda reached across the table, squeezing Lydia's hand. "You're doing the right thing. Richard is the only one who can fix this." Her voice was smooth and soothing, wrapping Lydia's doubts in comforting lies. Lydia's shoulders relaxed, a fragile trust blooming. Nearby, an older man glanced up, sensing something off, but said nothing. Amanda's smile never faltered, her betrayal hidden behind perfect composure. Jonathan stood outside the town hall steps, staring at the growing line of people clutching envelopes of cash. His gut twisted as he overheard Richard's name whispered, like a savior's prayer. A local banker passed by, hesitated, then quickly looked away, guilt flickering in his eyes. Jonathan approached him. "You know something's wrong here, don't you?" The man stammered. I can't get involved." Jonathan's jaw tightened. "Your silence makes you complicit." The banker shook his head and walked off, leaving Jonathan alone with his rage. The truth was slipping through his fingers like smoke, while Richard's scheme grew stronger with every silent witness. Lydia sat alone in her living room that night, the house eerily quiet. She stared at the envelope she'd prepared for Richard, her hands trembling. A faint sound from the kitchen made her freeze. Her son's laughter echoed briefly, then faded, leaving heavy silence. Lydia whispered, "I'm doing this for you," her voice breaking. She tucked the envelope into her purse, forcing herself to believe in the safety Richard promised. As she turned to leave, a small detail caught her eye. A receipt sticking out of Richard's jacket pocket, left behind during his last visit. It bore a strange company name she didn't recognize. Her stomach tightened, but she pushed the doubt away, locking the door behind her as she stepped into the night. Lydia returned home late at night, rain dripping from her coat as she entered the dark, quiet house. She dropped her purse on the table and noticed Richard's jacket still hanging on the chair. Something about the receipt she'd seen earlier gnawed at her thoughts. Curiosity overpowered fear as she reached into the pocket and pulled it out. The name of a shell company stared back at her, one she'd never heard of. Lydia's heart pounded as she whispered, This isn't right." A sound upstairs made her freeze. Slowly, she crept up the staircase, her breath shallow. From the hallway she overheard Richard's voice on the phone, calm and calculated. "She believes everything. By the time she figures it out, it'll be too late." Lydia covered her mouth to keep from crying out, her entire world tilting beneath her feet. Lydia's legs trembled as she pushed open the door, confronting the sight of Amanda standing beside Richard. Amanda's warm smile was gone, replaced with icy indifference. Lydia's voice cracked. "Amanda, you were helping him all along?" Richard turned, his expression calm, almost amused. "You finally figured it out," he said smoothly. Lydia staggered back, her chest tightening. Amanda crossed her arms, cold and unyielding. "It was never about protection, Lydia. It was about control." Tears blurred Lydia's vision as betrayal sliced deeper than any blade. Richard stepped closer, lowering his voice to a chilling whisper. "And now you're too far in to walk away." Lydia shook her head, denial colliding with terror. Richard's voice turned smooth and persuasive as he spun a new lie. "Lydia, listen to me. Amanda isn't your enemy, she's part of a covert unit. We've done this to keep you safe." Lydia's breath came in sharp, ragged bursts. "Safe? You've been stealing from us," she screamed. Richard's eyes darkened, but his tone remained silky. "You wouldn't understand the bigger picture." Amanda stepped forward, pretending to mediate. "He's right, Lydia. You'll ruin everything if you go to the police." Lydia glanced between them, her mind unraveling. Jonathan's warnings echoed in her memory, colliding with the painful reality before her. Lydia whispered, "I trusted you both," her voice breaking as she clutched the doorknob like a lifeline. Jonathan burst into the house moments later, his gun drawn, voice firm. "Step away from her." Richard's calm mask slipped, a flash of anger in his eyes. Lydia gasped, torn between relief and fear. Amanda's hand twitched toward her coat pocket, but Jonathan barked, "Don't even think about it." Richard smirked, trying to regain control. "You have no idea what you're interrupting." Jonathan's jaw clenched as he replied, "I know exactly what this is: fraud, manipulation, and destruction." Lydia stumbled toward Jonathan, whispering, "He lied about everything." Richard's eyes darted toward Amanda, an unspoken signal passing between them. Jonathan steadied his stance, sensing the danger about to explode. Across town, Michael Carter paced his cluttered apartment, clutching a photo of his ruined family. He finally pieced together the truth, realizing he was just another pawn in Richard's game. Anger surged through him like wildfire. He grabbed his phone and dialed Lydia's number, his voice trembling as he left a message. "Lydia, he's not who he says he is. I should have warned you sooner." Meanwhile, Lydia's phone buzzed unanswered on the living room floor as chaos erupted inside her home. Richard shouted orders, while Amanda blocked Jonathan's advance. Michael slammed his fist against the wall, vowing he's going to pay for what he's done. The camera lingered on his tear-streaked face as thunder cracked outside, signaling the storm ahead. Lydia clutched Jonathan's arm as Richard advanced, his calm demeanor replaced by pure menace. Jonathan said firmly, "It's over, Richard. You can't talk your way out of this." Richard sneered, "You think you've won? You have no idea who you're dealing with." Lydia's breath came in ragged gasps, as Amanda circled behind them like a predator. Jonathan positioned himself between Lydia and Richard, keeping his gun steady. Outside, sirens wailed faintly, growing louder with each passing second. Richard raised his hands slowly, a cruel smile curling on his lips. "Even now, they believe my story more than yours." Lydia whispered, "You destroyed everything I had." Richard's expression flickered, but his voice remained cold. "You handed it to me." Suddenly, the front door burst open, and Michael Carter stormed in, his face twisted with rage. "You ruined my life, Richard," he roared, holding a baseball bat tightly. Richard turned sharply, startled for the first time. Amanda moved toward Michael, but Jonathan shouted, "Stay back!" Lydia cried, "Michael, don't!" Michael's eyes brimmed with tears as he swung the bat into a nearby chair, splintering it. "You used me, my family, everyone." Richard raised his voice, desperate now. "You're nothing but a fool who believed what you wanted to hear." Michael lunged forward, forcing Richard to stumble. Chaos erupted as Jonathan tried to keep order, while Lydia clung to the wall, frozen in terror. Richard's composure shattered, and his voice became a venomous snarl. "You pathetic sheep. I gave you hope because you were too weak to save yourselves." Lydia sobbed, collapsing to her knees. Amanda's mask slipped as she shouted, "Richard, stop! You're losing control!" Jonathan's finger tightened on the trigger, his tone deadly calm. "End this now, Richard, before anyone else gets hurt." Richard's gaze darted wildly between them, sweat glistening on his brow. Michael screamed, charging again. Richard shoved Amanda into Michael's path, sending her sprawling. Lydia's anguished cry filled the room as Amanda hit the ground. Richard's true nature blazed through. No longer a savior, just a predator cornered. The door slammed open again as backup officers poured in, their shouts echoing like thunder. Jonathan barked, "Hands where I can see them." Richard froze, then slowly raised his arms, a sinister smile lingering. Amanda groaned on the floor, clutching her side. Lydia crawled toward Jonathan, clutching his leg for safety. Michael backed away, shaking uncontrollably, the bat clattering to the floor. Richard sneered, "You'll never prove a thing. My network is bigger than this room." Jonathan stepped forward, voice sharp as a blade. "We have enough evidence to bury you, Kane." Richard's jaw clenched as his empire began to crumble under the weight of truth. Richard was dragged to his feet, handcuffed and surrounded by officers. Lydia watched with tear-streaked cheeks, whispering, "It's over." Richard turned his head toward her, his voice low and venomous. "This isn't over, Lydia. You'll never be free of me." Lydia recoiled as Jonathan placed a protective arm around her shoulders. Michael sat in a corner, his head in his hands, broken but alive. Amanda was led away silently, her once cold expression now hollow with defeat. The room fell eerily quiet as Richard was hauled through the doorway, his eyes still burning with hatred. Outside, the first light of dawn cut through the darkness, signaling both an end and a beginning. Lydia sat alone on her bed, morning light creeping through half-closed blinds. The house felt eerily silent without Richard's voice poisoning the air. She clutched a photograph of her son, her tears falling silently onto the worn frame. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "It's over. You're safe now." Outside, the street was calm, birds singing as if nothing had happened. But inside Lydia's heart, a storm still raged. Memories of Richard's lies replayed endlessly, each one cutting deeper. She closed her eyes, wishing she could erase every moment she trusted him. The air smelled of coffee brewing in the kitchen, a reminder of normalcy returning. Yet Lydia knew her life would never truly be the same again. Daniel arrived later that day, finding Lydia at the kitchen table surrounded by silence. He placed a comforting hand on her shoulder and said softly, "You don't have to face this alone." Lydia's lips quivered as she whispered, "I should have listened to you." Daniel sat beside her, his voice steady but warm. "You were scared." He preyed on that fear. "It wasn't your fault." Lydia turned to him, pain etched in her expression. "I believed every word he said. I let him into our lives." Daniel gripped her hand, firm and reassuring. "You survived, Lydia. That's what matters now. You'll rebuild." The fragile moment hung between them, hope flickering like a candle in the darkness. At the police station, Jonathan stood before a group of reporters, the weight of the case heavy on his shoulders. Cameras clicked as he held up a folder. "Richard Kane orchestrated one of the most elaborate fraud schemes this town has ever seen," he declared. Behind him, a board displayed photographs and forged documents. "Thanks to brave witnesses, we've uncovered his entire network," Jonathan continued. Reporters fired questions, their voices overlapping. He raised a hand, commanding silence. "Justice will be served, and we will ensure this never happens again." Applause rippled through the room, but Jonathan's eyes remained hard. He knew there were still hidden threats waiting in the shadows. The local banker sat alone in his office, staring at his reflection in the darkened window. His trembling hands clutched a cup of cold coffee. Memories of his silence haunted him, each moment when he'd turned away instead of speaking out. A knock on the door made him flinch. An officer entered, expression grim. "We need to take your statement," he said. The banker swallowed hard, his voice barely audible. "I should have stopped it before it went this far." The officer replied, "You still can by telling the truth now." The banker nodded slowly, guilt heavy in his chest, as the weight of complicity finally broke him down. Amanda sat in an interrogation room, her wrists cuffed, staring at the blank wall. Across the table, Jonathan entered, his eyes cold and unyielding. "Why did you do it, Amanda?" he asked sharply. Amanda's lips curved into a bitter smile. "Because Richard promised me a life beyond these walls." Jonathan leaned closer, his voice low. "And now you've lost everything." Amanda's facade cracked, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I thought I mattered to him," she whispered. Jonathan stood, gathering files. "You were just another pawn. Now you'll face the consequences." As the door closed behind him, Amanda's sobs echoed in the empty room, like a requiem for her choices. Richard sat alone in a dark prison cell, chains clinking faintly as he leaned back against the cold concrete wall. A dim light flickered overhead, casting jagged shadows across his face. The guard's footsteps faded down the hall, leaving an unsettling silence. Richard's lips curled into a faint, chilling smile. He whispered to himself, "They think it's over." The echo of his voice lingered, unsettling and low. A shadow moved outside the barred window, briefly obscuring the light. Richard's eyes glimmered with malice as he added softly, "But this is just the beginning." In that moment, the audience understands. His reach extends far beyond the cell walls. Even locked away, he remains dangerous. At home, Lydia sorted through a pile of unopened mail when a small, unmarked envelope caught her attention. Her hands trembled as she opened it, revealing a single sheet of paper with neatly typed words, "You'll never be safe." Lydia's breath caught in her throat. She stumbled back, clutching the note, her mind spinning. No, this can't be happening," she whispered. Daniel rushed into the room, alarmed. "Lydia, what is it?" She handed him the paper silently, her face pale with terror. Daniel's jaw tightened as he read it, his voice steady but urgent. "This isn't over. We need to call Jonathan now." The message was clear. Richard's shadow still loomed over them. Across town, Michael sat in a dark bar, swirling a glass of whiskey. His reflection in the dusty mirror looked older, broken by grief and anger. A news broadcast flickered on a small TV behind the bar, showing Richard's arrest. Michael's eyes filled with tears as the reporter described the victims' stories. A voice broke through his thoughts. "You should have seen it coming," a stranger muttered, taking a seat beside him. Michael turned, startled, but the man was already gone, leaving only a lingering sense of threat. Michael's hands shook as he whispered, "How many of us are there? How many more lives did he ruin?" The question hung heavy in the smoky air, unanswered. Jonathan stood outside the courthouse, speaking quietly to a fellow officer as the sun dipped below the horizon. His gaze swept over the gathering crowd of reporters, shouting questions. He said, "This isn't just one man's crime. It's a system that allowed him to thrive." The officer nodded grimly. "So what now?" Jonathan's jaw tightened. "We keep digging. There are others out there and they're watching us." His eyes scanned the crowd, pausing briefly on a figure in the distance before it disappeared. A chill ran through him. He knew Richard's downfall was only the first battle in a much larger war. Late at night, Lydia sat by her window, the unmarked note lying on the table beside her. Outside, the street was quiet, illuminated by a single flickering street lamp. She stared into the darkness, her reflection pale and ghostly in the glass. A faint laugh echoed in her mind, Richard's voice, unforgettable and haunting. Her hand clenched into a fist as she whispered, "You won't win." Behind her, the note shifted slightly in the breeze from the open window, its message stark in the moonlight. The camera lingered on the chilling words, "You'll never be safe," before fading to black, leaving the audience breathless.